I paid $10,000 for my sister's dream 30th birthday. Then she said I didn't fit the vibe and left me off the guest list. 1 hour before the party, the venue called about the extras she never paid for. Then she learned my name was still on every contract.
Đã tái dựng theo toàn bộ transcript gốc và áp dụng đầy đủ bộ quy tắc đổi tên, giữ plot, nâng logic, giữ độ dài và tối ưu AI voice.
1 hour before my younger sister's 30th birthday party was supposed to begin, the manager of the rooftop venue called her and explained that several expensive upgrades were no longer authorized. The premium champagne was on hold. The oversized floral package had been reduced. The jazz band still had not received its final payment. My sister immediately accused me of ruining the night she had dreamed about for years. What she conveniently forgot was that I had paid $10,000 for that party, and she had decided not to invite me because I did not fit the image she wanted her guests to see. For most of my life, I believed family was supposed to be the one group of people you never had to second guess. I grew up hearing my mother repeat the same phrase whenever someone hurt another person and nobody wanted to deal with it. Blood is thicker than water. In our house, that sentence was rarely about loyalty. It was usually a request to overlook bad behavior, swallow your feelings, and move on before the person responsible had to face any consequences. It took me almost 30 years to understand that blood might connect people, but respect is what keeps those connections from falling apart. Once respect disappears, family history alone cannot hold everything together. My name is Nolan. I was 29 when all of this happened, and I had spent most of my adult life working in technology. I freelance consulted for growing companies, repaired complicated back-end systems, and slowly built a comfortable financial cushion. I was never flashy about money. I did not take luxury vacations every few months, lease expensive cars for attention, or post motivational quotes about wealth on social media. Most people probably would not have guessed that I had significant savings because I lived in a modest apartment, wore ordinary clothes, and kept the same practical routines for years. What mattered to me was stability. I wanted to know that if a client disappeared, an emergency happened, or someone I cared about needed help, I would not immediately be in trouble. I was the oldest of 3 children. My younger sister Camille turned 30 that summer. She had been talking about that milestone since she was 25. That is not an exaggeration. She mentioned it during family dinners, added ideas to our group chat, and brought it up during random calls while I was trying to solve technical problems for clients. She would say, "Nolan, when I turn 30, it has to be iconic. I do not want boring food or some depressing little dinner at mom's house. I want a rooftop. I want neon signs. I want a skyline. I want people to feel like they are walking into an experience." I usually smiled and told her she had plenty of time to plan. Elaborate parties were never my thing, but I understood that they mattered to her. Camille had always lived as though ordinary moments needed a dramatic presentation. She loved lavish birthdays, emotional speeches about entering a new era, hobbies that became her entire personality for 3 months, and relationships that appeared in carefully edited social media videos before ending in equally public breakup posts. I used to think that was simply how she expressed herself. The larger problem was that Camille had always been treated like the center of our family. She was the youngest, but the favoritism went far beyond normal youngest child attention. My parents, especially my mother, placed her on a pedestal and then expected the rest of us to help keep her there. When Camille forgot her chores, my mother said it was because she was creative and easily distracted. When I forgot something, I was irresponsible. If Camille earned a low grade, the school supposedly failed to understand her artistic mind. If I earned an A-, someone asked what happened to the plus. Her mistakes always came with an explanation. My accomplishments usually came with a new expectation. For years, I told myself none of that mattered. I was older. I was independent. I did not need applause for doing well. Whenever Camille needed help, I showed up because I believed that was what a good brother did. I defended her when relatives criticized her. I covered costs when she was short. I listened to every relationship crisis, business idea, career complaint, and emotional emergency. Even when she forgot to thank me, I convinced myself that generosity was supposed to be unconditional. I thought people matured, eventually. I thought one day she would look back and understand how often I had supported her. Earlier that year, Camille called me without warning. I had just finished a long consulting day and was eating cold pad thai in front of my laptop while reviewing client emails. She started a video call, and the moment I answered, she skipped every normal greeting. "I need your help," she said. She had found the perfect location for a birthday. It was a private rooftop with a skyline view, a cocktail bar, custom lighting room for music, and enough space for the highly curated party she had imagined. The problem was the price. The venue required $4,000 up front, and the full event would cost approximately $9,800 before any last-minute additions. I remember staring at the number on my screen. "Camille, that costs more than some weddings." She laughed as though she knew it sounded unreasonable, but expected me to understand anyway. I know, but it is my 30th birthday. It only happens once, and this is supposed to be my year. You know how difficult last year was. I just want one thing to be perfect. The difficult year she referenced involved a breakup with a boyfriend she had dated for about 3 months and an influencer partnership she did not receive from an activewear company. I knew those disappointments had felt real to her, but they were hard to compare with the pressure I had been carrying. At the time, I was working close to 80 hours during some weeks, managing difficult technology projects without a team, and trying to convert short consulting jobs into long-term clients. I was exhausted. Still, I felt sorry for her because I almost always did. I told myself that money existed to create security and meaningful experiences. I had enough saved. $10,000 would not destroy my finances. If it gave my sister a milestone birthday she would remember for the rest of her life, perhaps it was worth it. I did not ask for ownership of the event. I did not demand public credit. I did not create a repayment plan. I simply transferred $10,000 to her and treated it as a gift. Because my payment information was used for the venue, the reservation remained under my name. I became the primary financial contact, and the initial confirmation contracts, change requests, and final approval notices were connected to my email. At the time, I did not view that as control. It was simply how the venue processed a booking funded by someone other than the guest of honor. I assumed Camille and I would coordinate whatever needed to be approved. About a week later, she sent me a long thank you message filled with heart emojis, dramatic reaction images, and repeated promises that I was the best brother in the world. My mother called separately to tell me how generous I was. She said I always showed up when it mattered, and that Camille would never forget what I had done. I will admit that hearing those words felt good. For a brief moment, I believed my family saw more than what I could provide. I thought they appreciated me. A few months later, invitations began going out. Camille did not send traditional cards or emails. She designed an announcement for social media with glitter effects, edited clips of the rooftop, and a remix of a song from the early 2000s playing in the background. The message described the event as an exclusive celebration for her closest friends, selected relatives, a few cousins, and some local online personalities she had recently met. When I first watched it, I noticed I was not mentioned. I assumed that was because the post was designed for guests in general and that close family members would receive details privately. After all, I had funded the event. It seemed impossible that anyone would accept $10,000 from a sibling and then forget to invite that sibling to the celebration. I waited several days. No invitation arrived. Then a full week passed. Camille did not text me the date, ask about my schedule, discuss what I should wear, or even casually say, "You are coming, right?" Nothing appeared in the mail. Nothing arrived through email. Eventually, I decided to ask directly. I wrote, "Hey, I am checking because I might have missed something. Was my invitation lost somewhere?" 2 hours later, Camille replied with a laughing emoji. Then she wrote, "Oh my God, Nolan. I meant to explain. I have been thinking about the atmosphere, and the party is going to have this sexy, modern, younger crowd. I did not want you to feel out of place or bored. I thought we could have dinner another time, just the two of us." I read the message once. Then I read it again. I looked away from my phone, picked it back up, and read it several more times. Because I genuinely thought I was misunderstanding her. The casual laughter at the end made it worse. She had accepted $10,000 from me, planned an entire party with that money, and decided I did not fit the atmosphere she wanted. I was not expecting to be praised during the event. I did not need a public announcement about paying for it. I would have been perfectly happy standing quietly near the back, talking to relatives and leaving early. What hurt was how easily she excluded me. She spoke as if she were protecting me from boredom when she was actually protecting the image she wanted to create. Apparently, the older brother who funded the rooftop did not look exciting enough to be part of the story. I did not respond that night. I was hurt more than angry, and I knew anything I wrote immediately would probably become evidence that I was dramatic or jealous. I sat in my apartment with my phone on the desk and tried to understand how someone could receive that much support and still view the person providing it as inconvenient. Over the next several days, messages continued appearing in the family group chat. My mother posted photographs of centerpiece samples. Camille shared clips from dress fittings. People discussed the cake decorations, lighting, and guest arrival times. Nobody mentioned that I was missing from the guest list. My parents did not ask why I had not received an invitation. No one said they would miss me. No one even offered a weak excuse. At first, I wondered whether my parents knew. Their silence quickly answered that question. My mother was too involved in the planning not to know exactly who was attending. She simply chose not to acknowledge the situation. Perhaps she believed Camille had a right to design the guest list however she wanted. Perhaps she assumed I would accept it because I had accepted so many other things. Either way, everyone continued discussing a $10,000 celebration as though the person who paid for it had no connection to the event. That was when something changed inside me. I had always explained the favoritism as a normal family pattern. Camille was emotional. Camille needed more support. Camille was younger. I was stronger. I could handle disappointment. But this was no longer subtle. They had taken my generosity, removed me from the celebration, and expected me to remain cheerful while watching from a distance. I did not explode. I did not demand my money back. I did not send an angry recording to the family chat. Instead, I became quiet. I responded to photographs with a thumbs up emoji. When someone asked what I thought about a decoration, I wrote, "Looks nice." I stopped supplying the emotional enthusiasm everyone expected from me. It is strange how quickly a family conversation becomes uncomfortable when the person who usually keeps everything calm stops performing that role. 4 days before the party, Camille posted a short video that pushed my hurt into something much sharper. She had around 6,000 followers and treated each post as though thousands of people were waiting for an important announcement. In the video, she walked through the rooftop while employees prepared the space. She danced to a popular song, turned toward the skyline, and added captions about hard work paying off. Then another caption appeared: "When you finally book your dream rooftop without daddy's money." I knew the sentence was intentional. Our father had not paid for the venue. I had. Camille knew that. My parents knew that. The caption allowed her to present herself as independent without technically explaining where the money had come from. She had removed me from the guest list, and now she was removing me from the history of the event. That night, my cousin Tessa called. She was one of the few relatives I trusted completely. She was in her early 30s, direct, independent, and almost incapable of pretending something was acceptable when it was not. We had not spoken recently, so seeing her name surprised me. "Are you going to Camille's party?" she asked. I let out a tired breath. Apparently, I do not fit the atmosphere. She was silent. Then she said, "Are you serious?" "Completely." "Nolan, you paid for the venue." "I know. No, you did not just contribute, right? You paid for the entire thing. Yes." Another pause followed. Then Tessa asked the question I had been avoiding. "What are you going to do?" The truth was that I did not know. Part of me still wanted to ignore everything, let Camille have her night, and quietly distance myself afterward. That was what the old version of me would have done. I would have protected everyone else from discomfort while carrying the humiliation alone. The next morning, I was drinking my second cup of coffee and going through old emails when I noticed the original venue confirmation. It contained the reservation details, the deposit receipt, my name as the primary financial contact, and a link for managing changes. I clicked it. My account was still active, the reservation was still connected to my payment information, final approvals were still assigned to me because I had signed the original booking documents. Camille could request additions, but certain upgrades required approval from the person responsible for payment. For the first time, I understood how much access I still had. I did not immediately cancel anything. Despite what happened later, destroying the party was never my first reaction. I wanted to understand what obligations still existed under my name and make sure Camille had not added costs without telling me. I called the venue and introduced myself. The manager, Denise, was professional and helpful. She confirmed that the original reservation was fully scheduled and that the event team was preparing for the weekend. Then she mentioned they had been trying to obtain final authorization for an upgraded lighting design and a larger open bar package. "Your sister told us she was not authorized to approve charges," Denise explained. "Is that still correct?" "Yes," I said. "The reservation and payment account are under my name." Denise reviewed the file and confirmed that several final decisions legally remained mine because they could increase the amount charged. I asked her to note that any additional billing approval had to come directly from me. I was not blocking the original event. I was simply refusing to let other people add expenses to my card, while treating me as though I had no involvement. About 2 hours later, Camille called. She did not text or start a video conversation. She called directly. "Hey," she said, stretching the word in a way that sounded overly friendly. "Quick question. Denise from the venue contacted me about final approvals. I spoke with her," I said. I reminded them that I am the primary contact because the booking is under my name and I paid for it. There was an uncomfortable pause. "Oh, right, of course. I just did not realize they would need your input for the final details." "You did not realize the person responsible for paying might need to approve new charges." She gave a nervous laugh. "I did not want to bother you. You are always working." I waited. Then she continued. "Since we are talking, I wanted to change the open bar to the complete top shelf package and extend the rooftop rental by another hour. The photographer said the light will be perfect during that time." I had already seen the estimate. "Sure," I said. "Send me the difference first." "What?" "The upgrades are about $1,800. Transfer that amount and I will authorize them." Silence. "I thought maybe you could just—" "No." Her voice changed immediately. "Nolan, seriously. You told me I did not fit the atmosphere, remember? That is not what I meant. I was trying to protect you from being uncomfortable. You do not even enjoy events like this." "That is interesting," I said, "because apparently I enjoy them enough to pay for one." She became quiet for a moment. Then she huffed. "So now you are making my birthday about you, no, Camille. I am making sure I am not invisible in the story you are telling." The call ended without an agreement. For the next day, nobody contacted me. Camille did not apologize. She did not ask whether I would reconsider the invitation. My mother did not check how I was feeling. The family group became unusually quiet. The constant photographs and countdown messages stopped. The silence made it clear that Camille had told them something, although I did not yet know what version she had given. Even after everything, I began questioning myself. That is what years of being the dependable person can do. You become so used to carrying other people's problems that setting one boundary feels cruel. I wondered whether I had overreacted. Perhaps I should approve the upgrades, ignore the insult, and let my sister enjoy her birthday. Maybe it was childish to care about attending. Maybe the mature response was to accept dinner another time and pretend the situation was reasonable. Then my mother called 2 days before the event. She did not ask whether I was all right. She did not mention the fact that her son had been excluded from a party he funded. She started by explaining how stressed Camille was. "Nolan," she said, in the calm, careful voice she used whenever she wanted to make pressure sound like concern. "I think there has been a serious misunderstanding. Camille is overwhelmed, and she says you are making the final preparations difficult." She told me I was not invited. That is not what she meant. She wrote that I did not fit the atmosphere. She thought you would be uncomfortable. You know what her friends are like. She did not want you standing there feeling left out. She prevented that by leaving me out completely. My mother paused. "You know how important this birthday is to her. She has had a very difficult year." I had heard that explanation countless times. Camille was sensitive. Camille was recovering. Camille needed support. Camille had experienced disappointment. Every situation eventually became a reason everyone else needed to give more. "She is allowed to have a difficult year," I said. "She is not allowed to use my money and treat me like I do not exist." My mother's voice tightened. "What exactly do you want? Do you expect your sister to beg? She thanked you. You are her brother. I want basic respect." Another pause followed. Then she said, "You have always been rigid. You cannot let people enjoy things without controlling the situation." That accusation hurt more than I expected. If I wanted control, I could have canceled the venue the moment I learned I was excluded. I could have demanded the money back. I could have contacted every vendor. I had done none of those things. I had left the original party untouched and refused only to approve additional charges that nobody had discussed with me. "You know what, Mom?" I said. "We should stop pretending. I understand how you see me. I have understood for a long time." She did not answer. I ended the call. That night, I reached a point I had avoided for years. The pain was not really about $10,000. I could recover the money. It was not even about missing one party. The deeper realization was that I did not know whether I had a place in my family that was not connected to usefulness. I was the person people called when a bill was difficult, a computer stopped working, an emergency appeared, or someone needed a calm voice. I solved problems. I transferred money. I listened. I forgave. But when there was something joyful, something public, something meant to represent the family, I became optional. I felt useful, but I did not feel valued. I spent the following day working on autopilot. I ignored social media, answered only urgent messages, and avoided every family conversation. Late that evening, I stood in my small kitchen, looking at cabinets I had planned to repaint for almost 3 years. I kept postponing improvements to my own life because someone else always seemed to need something first. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I did not even cry. Something inside me simply gave way. I opened a blank document and titled it, "Things That Are Mine." Then I began listing everything I had built without my family. I wrote about the first major client I earned without anyone recommending me. I wrote about saving enough for my apartment. I remembered the nights I stayed awake rebuilding software systems while Camille posted photographs about being exhausted after doing almost nothing. I listed every difficult decision I had made alone, every professional risk, every quiet achievement, and every time I supported myself emotionally because nobody else noticed I was struggling. Then I created a second list, things I owe no one. The first item was my kindness. That sentence changed something. My kindness belonged to me. It was not a family subscription. It was not a resource people could access forever while treating me however they wanted. Generosity did not require self-erasure. Helping someone once did not obligate me to keep helping after they showed contempt. I realized that much of my adult life had been built around earning love through usefulness. I believed that if I solved enough problems, stayed calm enough, gave enough money, and asked for little in return, my family would eventually recognize my value. But conditional appreciation disappears the moment the useful person says no. I decided that I would stop giving significant parts of myself to people who did not respect me. That did not mean cutting off everyone in one dramatic moment. It meant I would no longer act as the family's emotional maintenance department. I would stop repairing relationships that other people damaged and stop paying for experiences designed to exclude me. The following morning, I woke up early and took a long walk. I bought fresh groceries and prepared an actual breakfast instead of eating leftovers while working. I reviewed my schedule and canceled several low-value client calls I had accepted out of habit. I contacted someone in Seattle who had been inviting me to consult for a startup. I had repeatedly delayed the opportunity because I worried that spending more time away would make me less available to my family. The startup project became one of the most rewarding professional experiences I had that year. The work was challenging, the people respected my judgment, and for the first time in months, I felt excited rather than merely responsible. Over the following weeks, I began sleeping better. I started going to the gym consistently. I tried meditation, something I had previously dismissed. I even began writing regularly because the simple act of organizing my thoughts helped me understand how often I had minimized my own needs. Those changes did not erase the anger immediately. The party was still approaching, and the reservation still contained unresolved additions. I had already redirected final financial notices to myself, so nobody could authorize charges on my account without permission. That decision became important when an event rental company called about an upgraded decoration package. Camille had requested additional premium items, but the remaining balance had not been approved. The company asked whether I wanted to authorize the charge. I did not request those additions, I explained. They asked whether the upgraded portion should be canceled. Do not cancel it yet, I said. Hold it until the guest of honor contacts you. She may decide to pay for it herself. That was not sabotage. I was preserving the original package I had purchased and refusing to finance additions Camille had made without asking. The morning before the event, I texted Tessa. I think I am finally going to make a move. Are you interested? She replied almost immediately. What kind of move? I called and explained everything that had happened since we last spoke. When I finished, she let out a long breath. Nolan, I have waited years for you to stop letting them use you. Tell me what you need. For the first time in days, I laughed. Tessa had always been treated as the difficult relative because she refused to follow the family's unspoken rules. She moved out of state at 18, rejected pressure from our grandparents to attend law school, and started a custom gift box company in her garage. During the pandemic, the business became successful through online sales. She built everything herself and never apologized for choosing a life different from what other relatives expected. More importantly, she was one of the only people who had told Camille no without changing her answer after my mother intervened. She had watched the same pattern for years. Camille wanted something, my mother defended her, I solved the problem. This party is only the visible part, I told Tessa. I paid for the fantasy, and she removed me because I did not match the story she wanted to tell. Now she is claiming she built everything herself. You are explaining this to the one person who already agrees, Tessa said. So what do you want, chaos or class? Some of both, she laughed. Good, then let us make sure nobody can pretend they did not understand what happened. We began by reviewing the event information I still legally controlled. The original rooftop rental, standard bar service, catering, lighting, and basic decorations were covered. None of those items were canceled. The problem was that Camille had requested upgrades without securing payment. She added gold-rimmed champagne glasses, expanded floral installations, premium alcohol, longer rooftop access, and a 5-piece jazz group for the cocktail hour. Combined, the additional changes cost approximately $3,200 beyond the package I had purchased. Some requests had been provisionally scheduled because she was the guest of honor, but the charges still required confirmation from the account holder. Denise had flagged the issue several times. Camille apparently assumed the money would eventually come from my card because that had happened with the original booking. The jazz group created another problem. Their deposit had been paid, but the contract required the remaining balance before noon on the day of the event. If the payment did not arrive, the musicians could withdraw without violating the agreement. My information remained listed as the financial contact. I called the group's manager and asked whether the final balance had been received. It had not. I did not authorize an additional payment, I explained. Please follow the contract exactly. If the guest of honor pays before the deadline, that is her decision. Do not charge my account. The manager remained professional and said they would follow the written terms. Next, I contacted Denise. I explained that the original event should continue exactly as booked, but that any unapproved upgrades needed separate payment from Camille. Denise understood. She placed the larger floral order and premium champagne package on hold. The standard flowers, original drinks catering, and rooftop reservation remained available. I also called the catering company not to reduce anything, but to make sure no last-minute guest count changes or specialty additions were charged to me without verification. Then I waited. Tessa helped with something different. Camille had removed me from a private social media list, but Tessa still had access. Throughout the week, Camille had posted videos about manifestation independence and years of hard work finally creating her dream birthday. She repeatedly implied that she had personally saved for the entire event. Tessa contacted a few cousins and several people who had known Camille for years. She did not ask them to attack anyone. She simply corrected the financial story. One former friend sounded shocked. Camille told us she paid for everything from her own savings, the woman said. When Tessa told me, I felt my jaw tighten. She did not only exclude me, I said, she replaced what happened with a better version for social media. That is exactly what she did. Tessa paused. Are you certain you want people to know? Yes, I am not asking anyone to embarrass her. I am done helping her lie. By 2 in the afternoon on the day of the party, Camille understood that the vendors were no longer treating her requests as automatically approved. Her first text asked, "Why are vendors calling you? What did you tell them?" Then she called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. A series of messages followed. "You are seriously ruining everything. Why are you doing this? You promised you were not going to make my birthday about you."
This is punishment because I did not invite you.
Her tone moved from anger to self-pity within minutes. She never acknowledged that the original party was still fully paid for. She never mentioned the $10,000 I had already given her. She focused entirely on the extras she expected me to cover. From what I later learned, she called our mother and asked for help paying the additional costs. My mother tried to rescue as many upgrades as possible, but could not immediately cover everything. That afternoon, I sent one message to my father. We had never been emotionally close. He was quiet, practical, and often avoided conflict. Growing up, however, he was occasionally the only person willing to tell Camille that her behavior had gone too far. Unfortunately, he rarely challenged my mother when she defended her. I wrote, "Dad, I want you to know the complete situation. I gave Camille $10,000 for her party. She excluded me, told people she paid for it herself, and became angry when I refused to fund upgrades she never discussed with me. I am not asking you to choose a side. I am telling you because I am finished pretending this is normal." He did not reply. Later, Tessa told me he called her. "Is everything Nolan said true?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "All of it." According to her, my father was silent before saying, "I should have noticed this years ago." I had no plan to appear at the party. I did not want to enter the rooftop, confront Camille in front of guests, or become the subject of a dramatic video. Public humiliation was not my goal. I wanted the financial boundaries to exist quietly. If she wanted luxury additions, she could pay for them. If she wanted to claim independence, she could experience what independent responsibility actually required. Tessa and I made dinner reservations at a small Italian restaurant across the street from the rooftop building. The restaurant had a clear view of the upper level. We sat near a window, ordered food and wine, and watched from a distance. At approximately 7:15, 15 minutes after the official starting time, 2 florists arrived with the original order rather than the expanded installation Camille expected. Tessa looked toward the building. She probably thinks the florist made a mistake. Around 7:30, a man wearing a suit walked onto the rooftop, checked his phone, and spoke briefly with someone near the entrance. "That might be the leader of the jazz group," I said. Several minutes later, the musicians left. Camille had attempted to pay the outstanding balance herself after the deadline became urgent. Her card did not complete the transaction. I later heard that the bank flagged the unusually large charge and required additional verification. She did not have a backup payment ready, and by the time she tried to solve the issue, the group had already followed the cancellation terms in the contract. At 8, Denise stepped outside with a phone pressed to her ear. Guests continued arriving. Some looked confused because there was no live music, and the decorations were simpler than the photographs Camille had posted. About 10 minutes later, Camille appeared in a bright gold dress, holding her phone and gesturing toward Denise. Even from across the street, I could see how tense she was. Tessa watched for a moment and said, "She is trying very hard to look in control." The original event was still functioning. There was food, there were drinks, the rooftop was open, guests had a skyline view. The party had not been destroyed. It simply looked like the event I agreed to fund rather than the more expensive event Camille assumed someone else would pay for. Tessa had arranged one additional detail without telling me the exact wording. Earlier that day, she wrote Camille a letter and sent it to the venue through a courier. "What did you write?" I asked. "Nothing threatening, nothing cruel," she said. I reminded her that telling people she created everything alone does not make it true. I told her, "You are finished being treated like a background character in a life you repeatedly helped build." I did not need to see Camille read it. I did not need tears shouting or a public confrontation. The important part was that someone finally said what our family had avoided for years. The night was not over. My father arrived alone. He wore a navy button-down shirt and simple slacks rather than formal party clothes. He walked onto the rooftop without my mother. Camille did not notice him immediately because she was still moving between guests and speaking to employees. When someone called his name, she turned and brightened. From where we sat, I saw her rush toward him as though his presence might restore the evening. Tessa leaned closer to the window. My father did not hug her. Later, several people described the exchange to us. Camille greeted him excitedly and said she had not expected him to arrive so late. "I am not here for the party," he replied. The sentence was loud enough for nearby guests to hear. He handed her a plain white envelope. It contained a short letter explaining that he knew who paid for the celebration, that he understood why I refused the additional charges, and that he would no longer support the family pattern that treated generosity as an obligation. He told Camille that being disappointed did not justify dishonesty, and that love did not mean everyone had to protect her from consequences. Then, he left. My father had apparently spent the previous 2 days reviewing old financial records, emails, photographs, and family messages. My text forced him to examine years of situations he had ignored. He saw repeated moments when I stepped in, Camille received the benefit, and my mother found a reason to excuse her behavior. He admitted later that avoiding those conflicts had always seemed easier than challenging the family dynamic. The party became the moment he could no longer deny the pattern. Camille was not upset because her birthday had been canceled. It had not been canceled. She was upset because the person she excluded stopped paying for every additional thing she wanted. According to Tessa, my father told her, "We taught her that love meant nobody was allowed to say no." 2 days later, I checked my mailbox and found another plain envelope from him. This one was addressed to me. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a typed letter. He wrote, "Nolan, I should have spoken years ago. I watched your mother protect Camille from every difficult consequence, and I allowed it because confronting the situation seemed harder than staying quiet. I understand now that my silence made me part of the problem. I have told your mother that I will not continue supporting this pattern. The money cannot repair the years you spent feeling responsible for everyone. But I want you to have it without conditions. You were right to step away. You are not invisible. I see you now, and I hope I did not wait too long." I read the letter several times. Then I cried. It was not the kind of crying that came from anger or disappointment. For the first time in my adult life, someone in my immediate family acknowledged what I had carried. My father did not tell me to forgive. He did not ask me to be the bigger person. He did not explain why Camille deserved more patience. He simply admitted the truth. The fallout from the party appeared quickly. The next morning, many of Camille's social media stories disappeared. Several birthday posts were removed. Comments were limited or turned off. Guests had noticed the missing band reduced decorations payment confusion and visible arguments with the venue staff. Some began asking questions. Tessa did not launch a public campaign against Camille. She did not share private financial documents or encourage harassment. She corrected the claim that Camille paid for everything herself. One former friend who attended the party posted a blurry rooftop photograph with a caption that said, "Imagine having a $10,000 birthday and forgetting to invite the person who paid for it." That is an interesting kind of manifestation. People shared the post. Screenshots moved through old friend groups. Eventually, the story reached a private online group where many people from Camille's school years still communicated. By that afternoon, Camille was trying to control the damage. She called me twice. She sent several messages. The first said, "Can we please talk?" Then, "I did not mean to hurt you." Later, "You could have told me you were upset instead of destroying my birthday." I did not respond because I had already told her what hurt me. She knew before the event. She knew when I quoted her message about not fitting the atmosphere. She knew when I refused the $1,800 upgrade. What she wanted was not information. She wanted me to remove the consequences. The strange thing was that I no longer felt the satisfaction I expected. Watching the evening become less glamorous did not repair the relationship. Seeing people learn the truth did not return the years I spent proving my value through service. What changed me was realizing that I did not have to remain available simply because someone called me family. People often imagine revenge as a dramatic confrontation. They picture shouting exposure, public humiliation, or some perfect speech that leaves the other person unable to respond. That was not what happened. I did not destroy Camille's party. I paid for the original celebration and refused to finance secret upgrades. I did not tell the vendors to punish her. I told them not to charge my account without permission. I did not publicly attack her. I stopped supporting a story that erased me. The strongest consequence was not what I did to Camille. It was what I stopped doing for her. I had spent years holding up parts of her life. I fixed problems, absorbed stress, defended her, and gave without requesting recognition. When I removed that support, she finally saw how much of the stability around her had come from someone she considered too uninteresting for the guest list. I did not burn a bridge. I stopped carrying everyone across it. About a week later, Denise called from the venue. She sounded slightly uncomfortable and explained that Camille had asked about reserving the rooftop again for a smaller birthday dinner. Apparently, she wanted to reframe the original event and create new photographs. The new payment did not process. Because my information had been connected to the previous reservation, Denise asked whether I wanted to authorize another booking under my account. "No," I said politely. "Any future event needs to be entirely hers." Denise paused. Then she said, "I have worked in event management for years. I have never seen someone show so little appreciation for the person who made the celebration possible." I laughed quietly. You are not the only person who noticed. My mother continued defending Camille for a while. She sent several messages about family unity and suggested everyone had made mistakes. She never directly acknowledged that excluding me was wrong. She focused on how painful the public reaction had been for Camille. For the first time, I did not argue. I told my mother that I was taking distance and that I would not discuss Camille until someone was prepared to speak honestly about what happened. Then I stopped replying to messages that attempted to turn my boundary into cruelty. My relationship with my father changed slowly. One letter did not erase decades of silence. I did not pretend everything was repaired. However, he began calling occasionally, without asking for anything. Sometimes we discussed work. Sometimes he asked about the Seattle project. He listened more than he defended. That effort mattered because it was consistent. He did not demand immediate forgiveness. He accepted that rebuilding trust would require time. I deposited the $10,000 check, but I did not treat it as reimbursement for the party. My original gift remained a decision I had made. The check represented my father's attempt to acknowledge his role. I donated part of the money to a local mentorship program that helped young people develop technology skills. Supporting students who were trying to build independent futures felt more meaningful than funding another extravagant event. I used the rest to improve my workspace. I bought new monitors, an ergonomic chair, and several pieces of art for the empty walls of my apartment. Those purchases were not glamorous, but every time I sat down to work, I saw evidence that I was finally investing in my own life. I repainted the kitchen cabinets too. Tessa kept a copy of the letter she sent Camille and framed it in her home office. When I asked why, she said, "It reminds me not to forget who I am. It also reminds me that quiet people do not have to remain invisible." Months passed. I continued consulting for the Seattle company and accepted more work that genuinely interested me. I protected my weekends more carefully. I stopped assuming that availability was the same thing as love. I learned that a healthy relationship should not collapse when one person says no. Camille and I did not repair our relationship immediately. She continued telling different versions of the birthday story. In some versions, I became a controlling brother who used money to influence her event. In others, the vendor problems were random mistakes that I took advantage of. I heard that she sometimes admitted she handled the invitation poorly, but she usually added that my response was worse. I stopped trying to correct every version. The people who knew the facts understood what happened. More importantly, I understood. The truth did not depend on whether Camille presented it honestly online. I transferred $10,000 because I loved my sister. She used the money for a milestone birthday and decided I did not match the image she wanted. She told people the party represented her own financial success. When I refused to pay for additional luxury items, she treated that boundary as an attack. Those facts remain true, no matter how the story changed. Looking back, I do not believe the most important moment happened when the jazz group left, the premium champagne disappeared, or guests learned who funded the event. The important moment happened alone in my kitchen, when I wrote that my kindness belonged to me. For years, I believed being a good son and brother meant remaining useful under every condition. I thought generosity counted only when I expected nothing, tolerated everything, and never made anyone uncomfortable. Now I understand that kindness without boundaries eventually becomes permission. I can love people without financing their choices. I can forgive without restoring the same access. I can care about my family while refusing to disappear inside it. Camille wanted a rooftop lights, music, luxury decorations, and a perfect story about creating everything herself. I helped provide the roof, the lights, the stage, and the celebration. The only thing I asked for was the basic respect of being treated like family. When that respect disappeared, I finally stopped holding everything up. I did not need a louder revenge. I needed the courage to walk away and allow everyone to hear the space my silence left behind.